I caught my husband cheating after discovering he drained $80,000 from our accounts while pretending his mother was dying to hide the affair. This all started back in March, when my husband, Peter, a 39-year-old man, began acting strangely about our finances. We've been married for 7 years, and we always had a system where we both contributed to our joint account for bills and savings, while maintaining personal accounts for our own spending. I first noticed something was off when I went to transfer money for our annual vacation fund, and saw the balance was much lower than it should have been, approximately $12,000 lower. When I asked Peter about it, he became defensive and said he'd been sending money to his mother, Janice, a 68-year-old woman, because she needed medical treatments not covered by insurance. Janice lives about 3 hours away, and while we're not very close, we've always gotten along fine. She has had health issues over the years, so his explanation seemed plausible. I suggested visiting her, but he immediately shut that down, saying she was embarrassed about her condition and didn't want visitors. Over the next few months, more money kept disappearing. Every time I brought it up, Peter would get upset and talk about how his mother's treatment wasn't working, and they needed to try something else. He'd say things like, "Do you want my mother to die?" Whenever I questioned the amounts, I felt like a complete jerk for even asking, so I backed off. By August, I noticed another $30,000 had been transferred out of our account. This was money we'd been saving for a down payment on a new house. I was starting to get really concerned, so I sat Peter down and asked for details about his mother's condition. He was vague, mentioning specialized treatments and alternative therapies but refusing to provide specifics. That night, while Peter was sleeping, I checked our joint account's transaction history. The transfers were going to an account I didn't recognize, not to Janice. When I confronted him the next morning, he claimed he was sending money to his brother Tobias, who was handling the medical expenses since he lived closer to their mother. This explanation didn't sit right with me. For one, Tobias and Janice have never been close. Additionally, Peter and Tobias barely speak, having had a falling out years ago over family business. The whole thing started to seem suspicious. I decided to investigate further. While Peter was at work, I went through his desk and found statements from a credit card I didn't know existed. He'd maxed it out, accumulating another $18,000 in debt I was unaware of. Most charges were for restaurants, hotels, and expensive gifts from places like Tiffany's. Unless his mother was staying at the Four Seasons and dining at Michelin-starred restaurants while gravely ill, something wasn't adding up. In October, when Peter left his phone unlocked on the counter while showering, I, who never snoops, felt compelled to check it. At this point, nearly $60,000 of our savings was gone, and I needed answers. I opened his messages and saw a conversation with someone saved as KP Work Project. The messages read, "Peter transferred another $5,000 today. Will be in your account by tomorrow. KP Work Project, OMG, thank you, baby. Can't wait to see you Friday. I've got something special planned." Peter responded, "Can't wait. The stupid pig believes everything. Just cry about mom, and she hands over money." KP Work Project replied, "You're so smart, baby. It's why I love you. Your wife is such a doormat. LOL. There were photos, too. KP Work Project was definitely not his mother, unless his mother was a 22-year-old blonde named Kayla who liked sending lingerie pictures. I scrolled through months of messages. They'd been seeing each other for almost a year. I found exchanges where they mocked me, planned vacations using our money, and discussed being together once they drained enough from our accounts. There were messages about a condo they were looking at together. Our house money was funding their love nest. I wanted to confront him immediately, but I knew I needed to be strategic. If I accused him outright, he'd likely deny everything and possibly hide more money. So, I took a different approach. I called Janice. We hadn't spoken in months, but she was happy to hear from me. I casually asked how she was feeling, and she said she was doing great, having just returned from a cruise with friends. When I mentioned medical treatments, she was confused, saying she hadn't been sick. That's when I devised my plan. I told Janice I wanted to surprise Peter for our anniversary, a small lie, and asked if she'd come stay with us for the weekend. She agreed immediately, excited to see us. For the next week, I acted normal around Peter. He made 2 more transfers to his mom, totaling another $3,000. Each time, he'd tell me a sad story about how the treatments weren't working, and they needed to try something more aggressive. I nodded and said we'd do whatever it took to help Janice. Last Friday, I took the day off work but pretended to go in as usual. Instead, I picked up Janice from the train station and brought her home. Peter wasn't expecting either of us until evening. We sat in the kitchen, and I told Janice everything: the missing money, the girlfriend, and the lies about her health. She was livid. I've never seen a 68-year-old woman so ready to confront someone. We decided to wait and face Peter together when he got home. Around 4 p.m., I heard his car in the driveway. He came in calling my name, surprised I was home early. Then he walked into the kitchen and saw his mother, healthy as ever, with a stack of bank statements in front of her. I've never seen someone go so pale so quickly. He grabbed the wall to steady himself. Before he could speak, I sweetly asked how his mother's treatments were going and whether the last $3,000 transfer was enough. Janice stood up and demanded to know what medical treatments he was talking about, as she hadn't seen a doctor in months except for a routine checkup, which was fine. The look on his face was almost worth the $60,000 he'd stolen. Janice grabbed the statements and went through them item by item. Four Seasons Hotel, Tiffany's. Who were these for, Peter? Certainly not for your dying mother. Peter finally broke. He admitted everything, the girlfriend, the money, all of it. He tried to claim it was a mistake, that he'd gotten caught up with Kayla but really loved me. Janice wasn't having it. She told him he was no son of hers, that his father would be ashamed, and that she was removing him from her will immediately. I calmly told Peter he needed to leave. He begged and pleaded, but I'd already packed a bag for him and called Tobias, who confirmed Peter hadn't sent him money for their mother. Tobias hadn't spoken to Peter in over a year. Peter left that night. I changed the locks the next morning and transferred the remaining money in our joint account to my personal account. I also froze our credit cards and contacted a divorce attorney. That was 3 days ago. Since then, Peter has texted me from Tobias's couch, where he's staying. His messages range from apologetic to angry to desperate. He claims Kayla dumped him when she realized the money had stopped. I haven't responded, following my attorney's advice to document everything but not engage. I've been staying with my sister Luna while figuring out next steps. I keep thinking about the months I believed him, feeling guilty for questioning the money, thinking I was helping save his mother's life, while he and Kayla laughed at my gullibility. I still don't know what to do about the money. My lawyer says we might recover some, but it'll be a long process. I'm meeting Janice again tomorrow. She wants to help me hold Peter accountable in the divorce. Peter's family, except Janice, is blowing up my phone, saying I should hear him out, that he deserves a chance to explain. Should I even bother? Is there any explanation that could make this better? How do I move forward knowing the person I trusted most thought of me as a stupid pig he could manipulate so easily? Update: thank you all for the overwhelming support. Many asked what Janice said when she learned Peter used her illness as a cover for his affair. Her words would make a sailor blush. I've never seen someone so furious. She's been calling me daily and promised to testify in the divorce if needed. She apologized, feeling responsible for raising such a son. I've been collecting evidence with my lawyer, and things are about to get interesting. First update: much has happened since I confronted Peter with his very much alive mother. For those asking about Janice, she's a force. The day after the confrontation, we met for lunch. She brought a folder with every birthday card, Christmas gift, and family photo of Peter she could find. She shared stories about his childhood, then ripped them in half, saying no son of hers would treat anyone this way, especially his wife. Janice called Peter's father, Ralph, with whom she remains friendly despite their divorce. On speakerphone in the restaurant, she told him everything. Ralph was shocked and didn't defend Peter. He asked for my lawyer's information to provide documentation for the divorce. Then Janice revealed Peter had asked Ralph for money months ago, claiming it was for her medical bills. Ralph sent $15,000 I didn't know about, adding to the $60,000 Peter took from us. The total keeps growing. While at lunch, Peter called Janice repeatedly. She answered on speakerphone, and he launched into a rehearsed apology about his terrible mistake and wanting to make things right. Janice cut him off, saying she'd changed her will, removing him entirely. She said, "I may not be sick now, but knowing what you've done makes me sick to my stomach. Don't contact me until you've returned every penny to your wife." After lunch, I returned to Luna's, where I found Peter in the driveway. He'd figured out I was staying there. He tried to block my path, begging for 5 minutes to explain. I refused, calling Luna from the car. She came out and threatened to call the police if he didn't leave. He shouted that I was overreacting and destroying our marriage over one mistake. Stealing $60,000 and having a year-long affair is apparently just one mistake to Peter. The next day, I met with my divorce attorney, Lisa, who advised filing an emergency financial restraining order to prevent Peter from hiding more assets. We found he'd been draining our accounts longer than I realized. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. Lisa estimated the total closer to $85,000, including credit card debt and hidden transactions. She also advised checking my credit report. Peter had opened 2 credit cards in my name, maxed out with charges to hotels, restaurants, and online retailers. Lisa helped me report the fraud and freeze my credit. 3 days after the confrontation, I returned to our house with Luna for support. The place was in disarray. Peter had clearly returned, looking for something. My jewelry box was empty, the house deed from our safe was gone, along with other documents and my passport. I called the police to report the break-in and theft. They mentioned a prior call from Peter claiming I'd illegally locked him out. They told him it was a civil matter since we were married. I filed a report for the stolen items, providing digital copies of the deed and marriage certificate. The police warned recovering the items might be difficult without proof Peter took them. While cleaning, Peter's sister Rosalind showed up, lecturing me about marriage being for better or worse and urging forgiveness. I reminded her Peter didn't prioritize family when stealing from me and mocking me to his girlfriend, or when he used his mother's fake illness to scam his father. That silenced her. She left, warning that Peter was in a bad place and I should be careful. That night, Kayla messaged me on Instagram, saying she never meant to hurt anyone and that Peter told her we were separated. She claimed she only learned we were together a month ago but was already in love with him. She sent screenshots of Peter saying our marriage was over, except for paperwork. The screenshots revealed Peter took Kayla to my family's mountain cabin, drinking my grandparents' vintage wine. He told her they'd upgrade it after our divorce. I forwarded everything to Lisa, who advised against contacting Kayla, noting she might be protecting herself from an alienation of affection lawsuit. The next morning, Luna and I drove to the cabin. It was a mess. Empty wine bottles, dirty sheets, food rotting. I found women's clothing and a notebook with renovation plans for my family's cabin, including contractor estimates and a timeline. I changed the locks, installed a security camera, and inventoried missing items, including my grandfather's fishing gear and grandmother's jewelry, worth about $5,000, sentimentally priceless. Peter called Luna's phone, demanding to know where I was. When she said we were at the cabin, he raged, claiming I had no right to change the locks on his cabin. Luna reminded him it was my family's property. He hung up. 20 minutes later, his car pulled up. We locked the doors and closed the blinds. Peter pounded on the door, then tried his key and circled the cabin. I called the sheriff, who arrived and spoke to Peter. I showed the deed, proving it was my family's property. The sheriff advised filing a protective order, noting Peter's fixation on the cabin. We stayed that night, with a deputy checking periodically. In the morning, Peter's car was parked down the road. The sheriff escorted him away, warning of trespassing charges. Back in town, I filed for a protective order. While at the courthouse, I received an email from Peter's work email with a storage unit key photo, and I know everything. My dad has a storage unit for family heirlooms. Peter had been there once and must have found my spare key. My stepmom said someone accessed the unit and the lock was changed. At the facility, security footage showed Peter taking boxes, including family photo albums, my late mother's jewelry, and documents like the cabin deed. The police said pursuing theft charges might be hard, since Peter had access to the key as my husband. That night, Peter emailed, "We need to talk about what happens next. Meet me tomorrow or I start selling things," with a photo of my mother's engagement ring. I forwarded it to Lisa and the police, who advised against meeting alone, but offered a secure meeting at her office. I'm writing this from a hotel Peter doesn't know about, having moved essentials and told only Luna and my parents the protective order hearing is tomorrow, and Lisa thinks we have a strong case given Peter's escalating behavior. I can't believe my life imploded so quickly. 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a stable marriage. Now I'm hiding while my husband ransacks my family's possessions and tries to extort me with my mother's jewelry. Second update, the protective order hearing was Wednesday morning. I arrived with Lisa an hour early. My dad texted that Peter was pacing in the parking lot. Lisa notified court security, who monitored him. Peter entered with a slick-looking lawyer staring at me with anger and feigned remorse. His lawyer tried to negotiate, but Lisa refused. In court, I detailed the financial theft, break-ins, and threatening emails. The judge asked about physical violence. I noted Peter's erratic and intimidating behavior. His lawyer portrayed him as a devoted husband who made one mistake, claiming Peter went to the cabin for maintenance and took storage unit items as marital property. Peter apologized for his lapse in judgment with Kayla, claiming he'd broken it off and returned most of the money. I showed the judge screenshots of him calling me a stupid pig and bank statements proving no money was returned. The judge granted a 90-day protective order barring Peter from contacting me except through lawyers and staying 100 yards from me, my workplace, Luna's house, and my parents' home. He ordered Peter to return stolen items within 48 hours. That night, Kayla DM'd me, saying Peter was harassing her since their breakup, showing up at her apartment and workplace. She wanted to meet, claiming important information. In person, she seemed young and nervous, not the glamorous homewrecker from her photos. She apologized, reiterating Peter told her we were separated. She continued the relationship after learning the truth, because Peter convinced her I was the obstacle. He took out loans in our names using fake emails, totaling $42,000. He also put a deposit on a condo for Kayla's birthday using our savings. Kayla said Peter became controlling, pressuring her for loans after I cut off his access. When she refused, he threatened to tell her conservative parents about their relationship. I thanked her and forwarded everything to Lisa, who began investigating the loans. The next day, my dad said some storage unit items were returned on his porch, but not my mother's ring. 2 days after the protective order, I returned to our house with a police escort. It was worse. Empty food containers, clothes strewn about, alcohol smell. The officer said they couldn't prevent Peter's entry since his name was on the deed. I noticed our wedding photo frame was crooked, revealing a patched hole where our wall safe had been. Peter had removed it. The officer documented it as possible financial misconduct, but noted it wasn't a crime since Peter co-owned the house that evening. Tobias called, apologizing. Peter, drunk, had ranted about me ruining everything and making sure I got nothing in the divorce. Tobias grew concerned when Peter mentioned insurance policies and leverage. Initially believing Peter's story of a brief fling, Tobias asked him to leave after seeing his behavior. Peter had met with unfamiliar business associates, claiming they were protecting his assets from me. On Friday, Lisa said the court expedited financial discovery due to fraud evidence, freezing Peter's accounts. His lawyer requested a settlement meeting, a reversal from their prior stance. Lisa suspected they realized Peter's weak position. The meeting was Monday at Lisa's office. Over the weekend, Janice texted that Rosalind said Peter was agitated, talking about leaving town. I forwarded this to Lisa. Monday, at Lisa's office, Peter's lawyer arrived without him. 30 minutes in, police called about my apartment. Furniture slashed, walls damaged, oil poured everywhere, "Stupid pig" written on the wall. Lisa requested an emergency hearing for the protective order violation. The police advised finding a safer place, as the apartment was uninhabitable. I'm in a new hotel under a different name. The police haven't found Peter, and I'm terrified. Lisa is pushing for an expedited divorce, but the process is slow. I may never recover the money or heirlooms. My life and future are dismantled by the person I trusted most, for a fling that ended when the money stopped. Last update: it's been almost 2 months since my last update. After the apartment destruction, police issued a statewide alert for Peter. For a week, there was no sign of him. I stayed in my secure hotel, barely sleeping. On Friday, Detective Robson called. Peter's car was abandoned 40 miles away, with his wallet and phone inside. They treated it as a missing person case. I had no idea where he'd gone. The Peter I knew wouldn't vanish, but he also wouldn't steal or destroy our home. 2 days later, Rosalind called, hysterical. Peter showed up at her house, disheveled, asking for a shower and money, claiming he'd pay her back double. When she mentioned the police, he got angry and left. I informed Detective Robson, who set up surveillance at Rosalind's. Lisa froze more of Peter's assets, including an unknown investment account. 3 days later, a text from a burner phone said, "We need to talk. Meet me at the park by the lake, 2 p.m. Come alone or I disappear for good." Police confirmed it was likely Peter and advised against going, but offered to monitor a meeting. I agreed, wanting this to end. At the park, Peter sat beside me, ranting about everyone turning against him over one mistake. He demanded $20,000 to start over, dismissing the thefts as minor. When he grabbed my arm, I refused to go with him. 2 plainclothes officers arrested him for violating the protective order. His backpack had my hotel's address, bank statements, and my mother's ring. At the bail hearing, the prosecutor presented evidence of Peter's violations and threats. His attorney claimed an emotional crisis. The judge denied bail, citing risk. The divorce was granted on grounds of fraud and adultery, awarding me the house and cabin, ordering Peter to repay the stolen money and legal fees. Criminal charges would be handled separately. Lisa warned recovering the money would be tough, as Peter spent most of it and lost his job. A week later, Ralph met me, feeling responsible for not seeing Peter's dishonesty. He gave me a $25,000 check to help me recover, which I accepted to repair the cabin. Peter took a plea deal, 18 months in jail, psychiatric evaluation, 5 years probation, and restitution. I've had no contact with Kayla. I sold the house, moved to a new apartment, and am rebuilding. The money is gone, but I'm grateful for your support. It's been 6 months since the nightmare ended, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on everything that happened. As I sit here in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes I've only half unpacked, I feel a whirlwind of emotions that I need to get out. Maybe sharing this will help me process it all, or perhaps it'll help someone else going through something similar. Either way, here goes. My raw, unfiltered feelings about the betrayal, the loss, and the slow path to healing. First off, the anger. Oh, the anger is still there, simmering like a pot that's been left on the stove too long. When I think about Peter, my husband of 7 years, the man I built a life with, using his own mother's supposed illness as a cover for his affair, it makes my blood boil. How could someone be so callous? He didn't just cheat, he manipulated me emotionally, making me feel guilty for questioning him. "Do you want my mother to die?" he'd say, and I'd back down, feeling like the villain. Now, knowing it was all a lie, that Janice was healthy and cruising with friends while he funneled our savings to Kayla, I want to scream. That money was our future, our dream house, our vacations, our security. He stole it all for hotels, jewelry, and a condo deposit for his side piece. The audacity. And the texts, calling me a stupid pig and a doormat. Those words haunt me. They cut deeper than any physical wound, because they reveal how little he respected me. I was just a means to an end, a bank account to drain. The anger flares up at random times, when I see a couple holding hands, or when I balance my checkbook and see the holes he left. Sometimes I punch a pillow or go for a run to burn it off, but it's always there, a fire that refuses to die out completely. But anger isn't the only emotion. There's profound sadness, a deep ache that sneaks up on me in quiet moments. I mourn the marriage I thought I had, the one where we laughed over dinner, planned trips, and supported each other's dreams. Peter was my partner, my confidant, or so I believed. Now, looking back, I see the cracks I ignored, his defensiveness about finances, the vague explanations, the late nights at work. I feel sad for the woman I was, so trusting and naive. I gave him everything, my heart, my loyalty, my future. And he threw it away for a 22-year-old who dumped him when the money ran dry. The sadness hits hardest at night, when I'm alone in bed staring at the ceiling. I wonder what I did wrong, even though logically I know it wasn't my fault. Betrayal like this shakes your self-worth to the core. Why wasn't I enough? Was I too boring, too predictable? These questions loop in my mind, bringing tears that I try to wipe away quickly. And the loss of trust, not just in Peter, but in people in general. How do I ever open up again? The thought of dating terrifies me. What if the next person is just as deceptive? I've lost friends too, or at least distanced myself from mutual ones who took his side or stayed neutral. The sadness is like a heavy blanket, suffocating at times, but I've learned to let it come and go, to cry when I need to. Then there's the fear. God, the fear was overwhelming during those weeks when Peter was escalating, breaking into the house, ransacking the cabin, stealing from the storage unit, and destroying my apartment. Writing "stupid pig" on the wall? That was a low blow, a direct echo of his cruel texts. I felt hunted, like prey in my own life. Hiding in hotels, constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at every noise. It was exhausting. Even now, with him in jail, the fear lingers. What if he gets out early? What if he finds me? I've changed my routines, installed better security, and even started therapy to deal with the PTSD-like symptoms. Nightmares where he shows up at my door, or worse, where I forgive him and everything starts over. The protective order helped, but it's just a piece of paper. The fear made me question my safety, my independence. But it's also made me stronger. I've learned self-defense, and I'm more vigilant. Still, it's a shadow that follows me, reminding me how quickly life can turn dangerous. Amid all this negativity, there's relief. Sweet, blessed relief. When the judge granted the divorce, awarded me the properties, and sent Peter to jail, it felt like a weight lifted. No more looking over my shoulder, no more wondering if he'd show up. Kayla's revelations about the additional loans and the condo were the final nails in his coffin, proving his deceit beyond doubt. And Janice, bless her fiery spirit, standing by me, ripping up those photos, changing her will. Her support, along with Ralph's check and Tobias's honesty, showed me that not all of Peter's family was toxic. The relief came in waves, when the police arrested him at the park, when bail was denied, when the plea deal was signed. I could breathe again. Selling the house was liberating. It was tainted with memories of his lies. My new apartment is small but mine, filled with plants, books, and no reminders of him. The relief allows space for healing, for small joys like coffee with Luna, or a walk in the park without fear. Guilt is another emotion that creeps in unexpectedly. Not for Peter, he doesn't deserve it, but for myself. Why didn't I see the signs sooner? The low balances, the defensiveness, the secret credit cards. I feel guilty for backing off when he played the mom's dying card, for not snooping earlier. And for involving his family, though they chose sides, I sometimes wonder if I escalated too quickly. But therapy helps me reframe this. Guilt is misplaced. I was the victim. Peter manipulated me masterfully, using my empathy against me. Forgiving myself is ongoing, but it's crucial for moving forward. Betrayal has layers, and beneath them is humiliation. Being mocked in those texts, laughed at while I worried about Janice. Kayla knowing intimate details about our life, using my family's cabin as their love nest. It made me feel small, foolish. Publicly, too. The divorce proceedings, police reports, family knowing. But sharing my story here has helped. The support from strangers validates that I'm not the idiot he painted me as. Humiliation fades as I reclaim my narrative. Finally, there's hope. Fragile but growing. 6 months out, I'm rebuilding. Therapy unpacks the trauma, friends like Luna provide laughter, work offers purpose. I've started hobbies, painting, yoga, volunteering. The money loss stings, 85,000 plus loans, but I'm budgeting, side hustling. Ralph's 25,000 helped repair the cabin, now a sanctuary. I'm not ready to date, but I imagine a future with someone honest, kind. Janice calls weekly, we've bonded over this. Hope whispers that this isn't the end, it's a new beginning. I've survived betrayal, theft, fear, I'm resilient. The emotions ebb and flow, but each day, I feel more like myself. To anyone reading, if you're in this hell, hold on. Healing comes. One feeling at a time.